Hello again. Sorry. A couple years ago, I made a video about the Treebeard chapter of The Two Towers, and I skipped completely over the Entwives because I wanted to make another video about them. So here we go. It is one of the greater mysteries of Middle-earth, right? What happened to the Entwives? Academic essays and YouTube lore explainers will emphasize the sadness of the tale of the Entwives and the grief of the Ents, and they use the information that we have available to us, right? Passages from Lord of the Rings and excerpts from Tolkien's letters. Jess of the Shire has an excellent video on Ents, Entwives, and love, and Tolkien himself said that even he isn't totally sure what happened to the Entwives. And that all seems pretty conclusive. Everyone else seems to have covered it, right? So what are we doing here? Well, Entwives do not actually appear in the narrative. They're just ghosts, a story, a song. But they are one of the things that haunt readers most, wondering what happened to them, sharing in the grief of the Ents. It's framed as a strange and sad story, and it is sad. The lost love between these beings who were made for one another. But the Entwives aren't here to speak for themselves, and we only get their story from the perspective of the Ents and the elves. So I want to consider the Entwives a bit differently. I want to see the sloe in the thicket, and the wild apple, and the cherry blossoming in spring. I want to offer a different reading of the Entwives. So let us walk together. So, as per usual, we'll start with the text of The Lord of the Rings to get situated. The first time we hear about Entwives is when Treebeard asks Merry and Pippin about the Shire over and over and over, because he thinks the Entwives would like it. The Entwives are still on Treebeard's mind, even if he hasn't gone to look for them in a good long while. When Pippin asks Treebeard if Entwives are like Ents, Treebeard says both yes and no. And later on, Treebeard mentions that they lost the Entwives. They lost them, and they cannot find them. Treebeard means that they physically lost them, like, where'd they go? But I think they lost them in other ways too, in the way that meaning and understanding can get lost in translation. And then Treebeard goes on to relate the rather strange and sad story, which I'll read for you now. And as always, we're in the 1999 HarperCollins edition, from the Treebeard chapter of The Two Towers. It is rather a strange and sad story, Treebeard went on after a pause. When the world was young and the woods were wide and wild, the Ents and the Entwives, and there were Ent maidens then, the loveliness of Fimbre Thiel, of Wandlin the light-footed, in the days of our youth, they walked together, and they housed together. But our hearts did not go on growing in the same way. The Ents gave their love to things that they met in the world, and the Entwives gave their thought to other things. For the Ents loved the great trees and the wild woods and the slopes of the high hills, and they drank of the mountain streams, and ate only such fruit as the trees let fall in their path, and they learned of the elves, and spoke with the trees. But the Entwives gave their minds to the lesser trees, and to the meads and the sunshine beyond the feet of the forests, and they saw the sloe in the thicket, and the wild apple, and the cherry blossoming in spring, and the green herbs in the waterlands in summer, and the seeding grasses in the autumn fields. They did not desire to speak with these things, but they wished them to hear and obey what was said to them. The Entwives ordered them to grow according to their wishes, and bear leaf and fruit to their liking, for the Entwives desired order, and plenty, and peace, by which they meant that things should remain where they had set them. So the Entwives made gardens to live in, but we Ents went on wandering, and we only came to the gardens now and again. Then, when the darkness came in the north, the Entwives crossed the great river, and made new gardens, and tilled new fields, and we saw them more seldom. After the darkness was overthrown, the land of the Entwives blossomed richly, and their fields were full of corn. Many men learned the crafts of the Entwives, and honored them greatly, but we were only a legend to them, a secret in the heart of the forest. Yet, here we still are, while all the gardens of the Entwives are wasted. Men call them the Brown Lands now. I remember it was long ago, in the time of the war between Sauron and the Men of the Sea. Desire came over me to see Fimbrathil again. Very fair she was still in my eyes when I had last seen her, though little like the Ent maiden of old. For the Entwives were bent and browned by their labor, their hair parched by the sun to the hue of ripe corn, and their cheeks like red apples. Yet their eyes were still the eyes of our own people. We crossed over Anduin and came to their land, but we found a desert. It was all burned and uprooted, for war had passed over it. But the Entwives were not there. Long we called and long we searched, and we asked all folk that we met which way the Entwives had gone. Some said they had never seen them, and some said that they had seen them walking away west, and some said east, and others south. But nowhere that we went could we find them. Our sorrow was very great. Yet the wild wood called, and we returned to it. For many years we used to go out every now and again and look for the Entwives, walking far and wide and calling them by their beautiful names. But as time passed we went more seldom and wandered less far. And now the Entwives are only a memory for us, and our beards are long and gray. The elves made many songs concerning the search of the Ents, and some of the songs passed into the tongues of men, but we made no songs about it, being content to chant their beautiful names when we thought of the Entwives. We believe that we may meet again in a time to come, and perhaps we shall find somewhere a land where we can live together and both be content. But it is foreboded that that will only be when we have both lost all that we now have. And it may well be that that time is drawing near at last. For if Sauron of old destroyed the gardens, the enemy today seems likely to wither all the woods. There was an elvish song that spoke of this, or at least so I understand it. It used to be sung up and down the great river. It was never an Entish song, mark you. It would have been a very long song in Entish, but we know it by heart and hum it now and again. This is how it runs in your tongue. The Ent sings, when spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bough, when light is on the wildwood stream, and wind is on the brow, when stride is long and breath is deep and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair. The Entwife replies, when spring is come to garth and field, and corn is in the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair. And the Ent says, when summer lies upon the world, and in a noon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves the dreams of trees unfold, when woodland halls are green and cool, and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. And the Entwife responds, when summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white, and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, though wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun, because my land is best. And the Ent says, when winter comes, the winter wild that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain, I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. And the Entwife says, when winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bough and light and labor past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. And they both sing, together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest. Treebeard ended his song. That is how it goes, he said. It is elvish, of course, light-hearted, quick-worded, and soon over. I dare say it is fair enough, but the Ents could say more on their side if they had time. But now I am going to stand up and take a little sleep. Where will you stand? We usually lie down to sleep, said Mary. We shall be all right where we are. Lie down to sleep, said Treebeard. Why, of course you do. I was forgetting. Singing that song put me in mind of old times. Almost thought that I was talking to young Entings, I did. Well, you can lie on the bed. I am going to stand in the rain. Good night. So that's the strange and sad story of the Entwives. There are a few notable things here. Their hearts did not go on growing in the same way. They wanted different things. Treebeard is careful to note that the Ents loved the greater trees, and that the Ents learned from the elves. But the Entwives, they were interested in the lesser trees, and in cultivating gardens to order the growing of leaf and fruit to their liking. Treebeard is also careful to mention that the Entwives aligned not with elves but with men, and taught them agriculture, and that the Ents are still around, while all the gardens of the Entwives are wasted. And as for the elvish song of the Ents and the Entwives that moves through the seasons, Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, has a great paper called The Myth of the Ent and the Entwife that digs into the song and the semantic dichotomy between Ent and Entwife. In the first stanza, Olsen notes that the Ent uses 2 active verbs in his last line, but both are directed at the Entwife. He requests that she come and say, while remaining stationary himself. The Ent's love for the wild wood may be unpossessive, but it is also nearly inert. And looking at the second stanza, Olsen notes that in the Entwife springtime, things are happening. Work is being done. The world of the Entwife is vibrant and dynamic, while the untamed world of the Ent is quiescent. And Olsen here highlights the difference in language used in the song, where the Ents use passive language and the Entwives use active language. The only time the Ent speaks in active voice is when he is commanding the Entwife to come and say. And I think this also points to a little something in Tolkien's worldview. He states himself in a letter that the Ents and the Entwives are one of the only places in the text where his own experience sneaks in. In a footnote to letter 163, he writes, "I long to devise a setting in which the trees might really march to war, and into this has crept a mere piece of experience, the difference of the male and female attitude to wild things, the difference between unpossessive love and gardening." Tolkien is here hiding his feelings about as well as Treebeard does, which is to say, not very well at all. The male attitude is unpossessive love, while the female attitude is gardening. Men are willing to let wild things be, let nature run its course, but women are intent on possessing, controlling, harnessing the power of nature and channeling it for their own purposes. So it's clear here which attitude Tolkien prefers and finds valuable, and his other letters reveal more about his interesting ideas about men and women. We can't get all the way into it in this video because I will lose my marbles, but letter 43 to Tolkien's son Michael is what we would call a fucking doozy. Allow me to present a melodramatic reading of a highlight from letter 43. The sexual impulse makes women, naturally when unspoiled more unselfish, very sympathetic and understanding, or specially desirous of being so or seeming so, and very ready to enter into all the interests, as far as they can, from ties to religion, of the young man they are attracted to. No intent necessarily to deceive. Sheer instinct, the servient, help-meet instinct, generously warmed by desire and young blood. Under this impulse, they can, in fact, often achieve very remarkable insight and understanding, even of things otherwise outside their natural range. For it is their gift to be receptive, stimulated, fertilized, in many other matters than the physical, by the male. Every teacher knows that. How quickly an intelligent woman can be taught, grasp his ideas, see his point, and how, with rare exceptions, they can go no further when they leave his hand, or when they cease to take a personal interest in him. But this is their natural avenue to love. What the fuck? Woof? Yuck? May I say, what the fuck? It turns out that Tolkien was a bit of a misogynist, huh? Listen, I'm a woman. I'm a woman who really enjoys Tolkien, and this from Tolkien isn't shocking or surprising to me. Like, I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid. We've all heard the complaints about how Lord of the Rings has barely any women in it, which is a criticism, by the way, that Tolkien mentions in Letter 165, does not matter. Fucking nice one, dude. Cool. And those are valid complaints that I'd like to spend more time with in another video. See what I'm doing here? Like and subscribe. But misogynistic attitudes about women being subservient, eager to please, fertile but empty soil, just begging to be seated with the stimulating guidance and, indeed, seed of men, come as no surprise. Tolkien grew up in England in the early 1900s. He may have been a progressive anarchist later in life, but he also held some troubling, see also fucked up, views about the relations between men and women. Seeing women as vessels for the interests, knowledge, and seed of men. This is what we're up against. This is real shit that Tolkien wrote down to teach his kid. It's generational misogyny being passed casually from father to son. And I feel the need to emphasize the obvious here. I didn't know the man. I can't speak to his attitudes and beliefs beyond what I've read in his letters. I know he was supportive of women in academic spaces, and I know he went out of his way to support women in his real life. I don't think he was a bad person or actively anti-woman or anything like that, okay? I just think that, due to his cultural background and his religious upbringing, he had some misogynistic ideals imprinted on him from a young age, and this inevitably shaped his worldview and his work as an adult. And this is what tends to happen, right? When you grow up in a patriarchal society, which, by the way, we all do. Western culture is dominated by patriarchy, and for a firm definition of patriarchy to get on with here, we're going to ask my favorite intersectional feminist and mother in many ways, Bell Hooks. In The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love, she speaks plainly. Patriarchy is a political social system that insists that males are inherently dominating, superior to everything and everyone deemed weak, especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak and to maintain that dominance through various forms of psychological terrorism and violence. Patriarchal thinking shapes the values of our culture. We are socialized into this system, females as well as males. So patriarchy places men in positions of power by default, and we live in a patriarchal society in our world. Patriarchy influences and harms men as well as women, and it becomes increasingly clear to anyone paying attention that there is no reconciliation within our current socio-political framework. It's a system of oppression that is built into the foundations of our society. Blocked, blocked, blocked. None of us are free from sin. We are all influenced and affected by the oppressive system of patriarchy. And I'm bringing patriarchy up here because Tolkien did it first, outlining Ents and Entwives as representations of differing attitudes between men and women. He doesn't want to be involved in the text, but in this case he literally said that the Entwives are a piece of the story where his own experience sneaks in, and that experience is tangled up in patriarchal thinking. I always turn to Tolkien when I'm feeling stressed, when I'm feeling sad, when I need to kind of reset, bring myself back to myself. And lately, I have found it interesting to read The Tale of the Entwives, not as a tragedy, but as an inspiration. What Tolkien wrote is interesting, but I'm more interested in what Entwives can mean now. And to me, they represent a feminist victory. Again, my girl Bell Hooks offers helpful definitions of feminism in Feminism Is for Everybody and Feminist Theory from Margin to Center. Feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. Feminism defined as a movement to end sexist oppression enables women and men, girls and boys, to participate equally in revolutionary struggle. The feminism I subscribe to and practice does not exclude men. It includes them. It requires them as comrades in struggle. Intersectional feminism considers how oppression affects everyone. It's not men versus women. It's all of us, working together to dismantle the systems that oppress us. And I know I'm saying a lot of scary words here, right? Patriarchy, feminism, revolution. Ugh. Let me explain. To go back to Corey Olsen and his paper, The Myth of the Ent and the Entwife, he mentions the work of Jane Chance in Tolkien and the Other, and how she focuses on self-absorption demonstrated by Treebeard and the Ents, pointing to them in both works as an example of insensitivity to the other that leads to isolationism and sterility. And this idea of isolationism, of insularity, is interesting here. Bell Hooks talks about this as well, to return to the will to change. Patriarchal masculinity insists that real men must prove their manhood by idealizing aloneness and disconnection. Feminist masculinity tells men that they become more real through the act of connecting with others, through building community. There is no society in the world made up of one lone man. Even Thoreau, in his solitary cabin, wrote to his mother every day. When John Gray tells readers in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that men will go into their cave, that is, that men will disassociate and disconnect, he is accurately describing patriarchal masculinity. But he never suggests that men can be fulfilled living their lives in the cave. However, many men caught up in patriarchy's embrace are living in a wilderness of spirit, where they are utterly and always alone. Under patriarchy, men are taught to isolate, to disconnect, to isolate themselves from the support that comes with building community, to disconnect from others. Men are encouraged to bury the parts of themselves that feel and love and care. Again, from Bell Hooks. Patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. And this is not the fault of men. It is the fault of patriarchy. Patriarchy harms men just as it harms women. That harm just shows up in different ways. If you've seen anything about the manosphere lately, you know what I'm talking about. Men and boys are suffering at the hands of patriarchy, and the passive and nearly inert Ents, who exist as solitary shepherds in the vast, wild wood, the wilderness of Fangorn, they embody patriarchy in this discussion. Their way of life, despite Treebeard's defensive protestations, isn't serving them very well anymore. They're becoming tree-ish. They're inactive, they're inert, they're utterly passive and uncaring for the world beyond the borders of Fangorn. And the passivity and unpossessiveness of the Ents is acceptance of the status quo. It's hesitance to change. Patriarchy is not passive, but it is propped up and perpetuated by passivity in women and men. Our persistent inaction is how patriarchy thrives. It's a system built into the bones of our society and the culture we weave around it. It's not going to just go away if we pretend it's not there. It is the way of life presented as the default, and nothing will change if we don't take action. But what can we do, dude? What can we do? We're just little hobbits in the big wide world. Our individual actions don't even seem to make a ripple on the surface of the ocean of systemic oppression, deep and insurmountable and more terrifying the more you think about it. Alone, we can't do much, but together, we can make big waves. And this is where I see the tale of the Entwives as a victory for revolutionary, collective, feminist action. Again, Tolkien frames the difference between Ents and Entwives as the difference between unpossessive love and gardening. And at first glance, unpossessive love sounds great. It sounds non-toxic. Like, who wants a possessive lover? Not me, not you. But if we look at what it means to possess something, it means to have something, to hold it, to be responsible for it, to care for it. If you are utterly unpossessive in your love, you feel no responsibility and you have no care for that which you love. And I think the Entwives have that sense of responsibility and sense of care. They have the impulse to build community, to share knowledge and skills, to take action, to nurture. With unpossessiveness comes the passivity and insensitivity outlined by Jane Chance. Like, if I don't feel any sense of responsibility for you, it is much easier to not care about you. And it's not that the Ents don't care about the Entwives, it's that the Ents care more for their own way of life. They didn't go looking for the Entwives to try and live with them. In the song, the Ents demand that the Entwives come and say their land is best. It's not that the Ents consciously dominated or controlled the Entwives, it's that the Ents were unwilling to consider another perspective, to consider that the Entwives might feel differently, might want different things, might see a different future for themselves and their world. The tragedy of patriarchy is that the Ents can't see far enough to go with the Entwives. The Ents cannot stand to give up their way of life. They haven't got the vision or the expansiveness of what love and life can be and what it can look like. The inability or refusal to see the whole person is a major component of Tolkien's misogyny, right? He sees women as vessels. He sees women as receptors for the interests of men. And the Ents refuse to see the whole person of the Entwives. And by rejecting the Entwives' vision, they refuse to see the whole of themselves. Ents are like frozen in this kind of self-hatred. They can't go with the Entwives. They can't undertake revolutionary action until the world has completely changed. They're not able to unshackle themselves from the default way of life that has been presented to them. And this is not to say that Treebeard has no care for his forest. He just only cares in his way, which is passive and unpossessive. He speaks as if he has no control over or responsibility for the situation, and the Entwives wanted to live their lives in a different way. So they simply did. They left. They all left. Not just some of the Entwives, all of the Entwives. They formed their own community. They established gardens in which to live as they saw fit, in a way that made sense to them, in their own sort of harmony with the earth. They taught men, and likely hobbits, agriculture. They built a life separate from the Ents, and they lived on their own terms. The departure of the Entwives can stand for revolutionary community action in this conversation. They escaped the domination and control, however passive and subtle, of the Ents. That fundamental domination is the foundation of a patriarchal society, and the idea that women need to be guided, taught, and influenced, ultimately dominated, by men in order to achieve their potential, is one that Tolkien vocally held. I'm overlaying patriarchy as an oppressive system on top of the Ents and the Entwives here. And I know it's not one-to-one. I don't think the Ents were violently or consciously dominating the Entwives. I just think the Ents insisted on their way of life, on their way of doing things, and the Entwives wanted something else. And even if some of the Ents went with the Entwives, the outcome would still be the same. Again, in The Will to Change, Bell Hooks suggests that even if individual men divested themselves of patriarchal privilege, the system of patriarchy, sexism, and male domination would still remain intact, and women would still be exploited and oppressed. It's kind of an all-or-nothing situation, right? Everyone has to participate, or nothing changes. And going back to passivity and insensitivity, these traits are demonstrated by women as well as men in our real world. And there are more systems of oppression at work in our society than patriarchy alone. Revolutionary action requires an intersectional approach, one that considers how oppression affects everyone, one that leads with radical love. If we don't feel any sense of responsibility for one another, it becomes frighteningly easy to not care for one another. It takes a village, right? And our villages have been burning, literally burning, for a while now. Tearing down the systems that oppress us, considering all of it, feels overwhelming. But it just takes a little bit of determination and resilience and community action to get the ball rolling. It's acting on the deeply felt frustration and dissatisfaction of having your own ideas of what it means to be and to live, of taking an active role in the world around you while living in an inherently passive society. You cannot see a path to happiness living like this, and you suspect you aren't alone. So instead of settling, you leave. If it sucks, hit the bricks. You go, and you live on your own terms. You forge a new world, apart from the society whose rules you had no hand in writing. You grow, and you nurture, and you change, and you share your knowledge, and you create the community you were missing. You build the life you envisioned. Sometimes it feels like the only way to live differently is to escape. Like, how many millennials, myself included, fantasize about buying a plot of land and living off-grid with our friends? It's naive and probably stupid, sure, but the impulse is very much there. Tolkien and my girl Ursula K. Le Guin speak about the importance of escape from a cruel world, and I myself have endorsed fantasy as the pleasure of escapism many times on this channel. The impulse to escape, at least for me, is driven by dissatisfaction, by frustration, by sadness and pain and overwhelm. We live in a society, right? And it really fucking sucks most of the time. Intersecting systems of oppression like patriarchy govern our lives and stunt our opportunities for connection and community and the strength therein. We become divided, isolated, passive, inert, entish, tree-ish. Gathering ourselves up and taking action, building community and deciding together that we have had enough, this is what I learned from the Entwives. They made gardens, dog. They employed the resources available to them to build something beautiful, and they taught men and hobbits agriculture through community building and skill sharing. They took action. They did the thing. They found some land with their friends, and they lived on their own terms. And yes, the gardens burned, and the Entwives are lost. The patriarchy of the Ents survives, while the feminist revolution of the Entwives was relatively short-lived, a brief utopia ultimately flawed. So how do we reconcile the apparent failure of the Entwives when I am so determined to see it as a victory? Well, the Ents love the Entwives, and the Entwives love the Ents. And actually loving someone is growing their whole person, right? You don't manipulate the plant, but you tend the soil. You create the conditions where the one you love can thrive, and they do the same for you. You grow together. The Entwives labored to allow the earth to be her best self, and learned how they can contribute to that best selfness, how they could grow together with the earth, how they could nurture for a future. The Ents need this active influence to bring intention to their passivity. Together, the Ents and the Entwives are balance in nature. But the Entwives and the Ents fucked it up. The Ents were inflexible in their way of life, and the Entwives just left. That sundering, that separation, that failure to work together and balance toward a common goal, that's where they blew it. Like, the Entwives are gone. The Ents know it's too late, and that there's no way to find that balance again without the Entwives, and they know that something's wrong with the Ents because of it. They're becoming tree-ish. They have been idle. They have let things slip. And then 2 little hobbits arrive in the forest, hobbits whose ancestors learned agriculture from the Entwives, who remind Treebeard of the Entwives, and especially of Entings. Entings being Ent children, the would-be future of the Ents. That reminder puts the attitude of the Entwives at the front of Treebeard's mind. The passivity of the Ents led to the proliferation of Saruman's vision, and the arrival of the hobbits ignites Treebeard's sense of care, of responsibility, of possessiveness, and spurs the revolutionary action of the March on Isengard. It's a sort of rewilding, the destruction of Isengard by the Ents. It doesn't actually take a lot to fix nature, because nature already knows, and that's where passivity comes into the balance. You actively prepare, and then passively let it grow, let it do what it needs to do. And the flooding of Isengard is industry being reclaimed by nature, restoring the balance. It comes back around to my dream of having a piece of land where I can allow nature to do what it wants to be doing, where I can lay the way for nature to come back to herself. If that land is mine, it's one fewer bit of land that a company can buy up to turn into a data center, right? It's one more piece of land that we can reclaim, rewild, and use to rebuild. And gardening, rewilding, bringing balance back to nature is the provenance of the Entwives. If Ents were on one side of the spectrum doing fuck all, and Saruman was on the other side of the spectrum destroying everything, Entwives and their gardening are right in the middle. bringing that balance. And the thing that unites gardening and community action and revolutionary action is nurturing for a future. But what does that future look like? What can it look like? The answer is in Treebeard's words, in the Song of the Elves, and in one of Tolkien's letters. Again, while he's telling the story of the Ents and the Entwives, Treebeard says, "We believe that we may meet again in a time to come, and perhaps we shall find somewhere a land where we can live together and both be content. But it is foreboded that that will only be when we have both lost all that we now have." In the Song of the Elves, it goes, "Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest." Finally, from one of Tolkien's letters, letter 338, he says, "It is plain that there would be for Ents no reunion in history, but Ents and their wives, being rational creatures, would find some earthly paradise until the end of this world, beyond which the wisdom neither of elves nor Ents could see." So, in the Song of the Elves, in Treebeard's own words and in Tolkien's own words, the Ents and the Entwives may meet again in another world, a world beyond this one, a world unrecognizable to us, where both their hearts may rest, when they have lost all that they now have, where they can live together in harmony. That's the answer. The answer isn't women departing from men or men controlling women. It's all of us finding a new way to live together that is unshackled from the systems of oppression that govern our current life. And it is a new world. It's a world unrecognizable to us because it's basically imaginary, unless we all start to radically love one another in the way that I believe we're meant to. The ultimate victory for the Entwives and the Ents lies in seeking for a new world. And I think that translates very easily to our current situation in the real world. We carry a new world here in our hearts, and that world for us means community building and tearing down the systems of oppression that keep us from connecting with one another. It's a world beyond this one because we need to lose all that we now have. We need to dismantle systemic oppression and all the noise and the bullshit and the society that demands we destroy our planet in order to move forward, to make it real, to rebuild our villages and nurture our earth and ourselves for the future. This has been a video about Entwives. Thank you for watching.